Well, our next guest says that they made a smart move when the pandemic hit, and that decision has helped them grow during this difficult time. Here to explain how they created a client centered firm is Tony Karls. He's the president of Sterling Law Offices. Good morning to you, Tony.
Good morning, Tiffany.
Good to see you again. I think this is very interesting. We mentioned the fact that you have this client centered family law firm. And I think doing such, especially creating that at your law offices, has to start with the right culture. So, talk about the people that you hire, because I'm always impressed with the values of the people that you have on here talking through your law firm.
Sure. I would start first with, we haven't always been perfect, and we're still a work in progress in a lot of ways. And I think from a leadership perspective, that's kind of where it starts, is kind of knowing what you're good at and what you're not. And over the course of the last couple of years, we've been able to develop a framework around two concepts that we identify as truth and love. And we feel like our culture sits right on a good balance between those two concepts.
I love that. I like hearing that. And it's not something that you often hear from a law firm. And I think that shows the forefront of everything that's important to you is values. And so, speaking of hiring, when we talk about companies during the pandemic, it's been a difficult time for so many. How have you guys managed to thrive during this time?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't immune to it at all. March and April were really rough. And, it really started with you kind of embracing that truth and love concept. And, just to speak a little bit to that, it's really truth in business, in my opinion, is the ability for a business to work on and drive profit, create processes, create value for clients. But if you don't balance that with love and understand that all the people that are involved with that internally at the firm, you can really get out of balance. And part of that is understanding where we're at and knowing where we're going. So when the pandemic hit, we were really transparent with our team. I'm in charge of doing all the modeling in terms of how our business is going to perform over the next couple months. And the model for what was going to happen with the pandemic didn't look great, but we weren't shy about sharing that with our team. And what that allowed for us to do is trust our team was a group of adults that were focused on achieving a mission for clients. And they were able to focus on that and not wonder and fill the gap of no communication with anxiety and fear and wondering about what was going to happen to them. We were really transparent with it. We laid out a very clear goal, and we got everybody working together towards achieving that mission of getting back on track so that we could continue going towards where our end result looks. And we're still able to continue hiring now that we were able to work through that in the months of March through June. And it was really exciting to see. It was fun to go through. It's interesting to say that because it really was an experience that brought us together. It didn't separate us. And we're a much stronger, more cohesive unit than we were before. And that it was just it's a really rewarding experience being in a position of leadership to work together with the team to achieve something that you weren't necessarily, it didn't look like it was achievable, if that makes sense.
I think it's been tremendous to watch how companies have turned their mentality. You mentioned that fear and anxiety, and you really kind of turned that into, like you said, a teamwork and a mentality of abundance. And we're going to get there together. And I like that. The fact that you've continued to hire speaks to that. How do you feel all of that company culture translates to your clients when you work with them?
Yeah, I mean, if your employees or your team is consumed with fear and anxiety, or they're not engaged, that's going to show up in the work that you do, whether you're working directly with clients or you're there supporting staff that is directly working with clients, because you're going to be worried about what's next in terms of your own life. And if you don't feel supported, you don't feel confident in where you are in your own journey and where you're trying to get to, how can you help others is kind of one of the things that we really think about. We try to get better at every day, because how much of ourselves can we give away if we're in a state of concern and fear?
I just love the fact that you mentioned how much of yourself can you give away, because thinking about a lawyer, that's not what we typically hear from lawyers. It's such a different mentality. And I think that's what stands out so much about you with Sterling Law Offices is is just truly the language that you use is completely different than what we think of for a law office. I think this is fascinating because you're going to join us in another week, and
Yeah.
you're going to talk about the fact that instead of starting a law office, you were thinking about starting a roofing company.
Yeah, we were 6 years ago. We were really thinking about starting a roofing company instead of a law firm, and we're now very different, obviously. So it was an exciting journey, and I'm excited to share that story with you.
I think that's so great. I'm looking forward to hearing that. During this time of a pandemic, what kinds of things can people contact Sterling Law offices for? Who are you serving?
We're families that are going through that difficult transition of divorce or dealing with how do they transition, working through issues related to paternity are the two main focuses that we have. And we've picked those primarily because they're very difficult, emotional, and not. It takes the right type of person to try to work through those issues with a client. Because like we've been talking about, if you're able to give yourself to those clients and understand that where they are, you're able to support them during a really difficult transition.
I think you truly are called to serve in a very unique way. And I know you feel strongly about empowering your family clients. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, Tony.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany.
Appreciate it. And Sterling Law Offices is a proud sponsor of TMJ4's ongoing campaign called We're Open. To learn more about Sterling, you can just go online at sterlinglawyers.com.